What if somebody could open your door just by looking at it? Through one gaze, doors open. I did not believe this until I read something. This is not a book review, but some words can give you guidelines towards language learning, specifically skills. So the minute I read something interesting, I want to share it with you, and that is Chora Shastra, the science of thievery. What is the science of thievery? It sounded weird and bizarre to me when I read these words from a book. And today, the book that I'm going to use for reference is Chora Shastra by V.J. James. This is translated from Malayalam, and it's a beautiful book. But there are certain things that I would like to reiterate for language learners because it helps you. So, welcome to another content video on my channel, and this is Renee Rose Matthew. There is nothing known as perfect language, but you can always master skills. Chora Shastra, the signs of thievery. And it is a story of a thief. A thief became a thief just because he watched his father stealing things, getting involved in robbery, theft, and he didn't have any other option. He couldn't study much, he did not contribute anything to the society. So, naturally, eventually, he was forced to become a thief. And that was his modus operandi. I've already done a video on this. What is the meaning of modus operandi? Yes, so he became a thief, and I did not know that there are different levels when it comes to expertise in theft and robbery. So, just like any job profile, the author puts in a very subtle way that there are different levels of thieves. So, people who steal coconuts or any other grains, pulses, things from the paddy fields and from the houses are called low level thieves or ordinary thieves, or when they get engaged in theft in villages and small houses, then it is like they are petty thieves. But suppose they rob banks, and if they go for higher acts of robbery and theft, then they are known as bigger thieves who get involved in advanced theft and thievery. I didn't know this. I was laughing when I read this portion, and it's put in a very humorous way. Of course, you cannot justify robbery and theft because it does so much harm. Now, this thief gets involved in robbery. He begins collecting so many things from different houses. And when people are not in their houses, he will creep in and he will find different ways to rob and steal things, including jewelry. He always wanted to gift a big necklace to his wife, but he was not able to do it. One day, he lands in the house of a professor. Now, this professor was a bit eccentric. This professor was a scholar, but at the same time, he was a bit eccentric. He experimented with different sciences, okay, Shastra. He was into learning different branches of studies, and now he was learning about the science of thievery. And that is when this thief creeps into his house. And as soon as the thief lands in the dining hall, in the main space of the house, the professor was waiting for him. He said, "Ah, come. I was waiting for the first person to enter this house because I'm trying to master the science of thievery." And the thief was shocked because usually when somebody or anyone sees a thief, they will start shouting and they will try to take action. But this professor said, "Welcome, welcome." So that was kind of insane. It was weird. Now, here, the professor tried experimenting whatever he learned with the thief. He teaches everything to the thief. He says you can always open any lock just by looking at it. And the thief was left aghast. The thief was awestruck and he was alarmed by this particular statement. Just by looking at locks, I take so much effort to open every lock. And it's so difficult. And immediately the professor said, "You can do it anytime. You just have to focus." So, focusing is the first thing you have to do. And this professor said, "You just come for classes. I'll teach you how to open any lock by just looking at it through one gaze." And he learned it. He said there are a lot of ways in which you can focus. So the first thing that we need when it comes to language learning is, even when you listen to a content, many of you are interested in listening, you have to focus on your vocation, your goal. If you're learning a language, don't get distracted, don't look at other things and try to correct others when it's not required. So focusing is important, just like how the professor said, but here it was for a different purpose. And after that, the professor says there are different shastras. I'm showing the pages here. He said there are different acharyas. What is the meaning of an acharya? A master, a scholar, a learned person. So he says there is a person called Shanmuga, and he's also called by another name. He's the reigning deity in the science of thievery, and he's known for so many things, his expertise. So just like you have got different stalwarts and legends in different professions, like you have writers in language, you have language scholars, linguists, so many other masters in the field of language and linguistics, we have got stalwarts and legends in thievery also. And he goes on to describe each one. Like there are people who are known for climbing walls. There is an acharya who is known for climbing walls without any help, and he can go to the extent of stealing anything. So this is one kind of skill you have to acquire. Then he goes on to explain every acharya. Like one person is known and renowned for becoming invisible. So immediately the thief says, teach me how to become invisible, I want it, because it's going to be very helpful. And then the professor says, wait, have patience, you have to first focus to open the lock through just one gaze. And after that, we can see that the thief masters, he learns how to open the locks of every house. He was able to do it in a jiffy. He will look at the lock, he will open, and he'll get into the house because half the work is done. He enters the house when nobody is there, he collects everything what he wants, and he runs away. And then he encounters a small boy. Now, when you read this part of the boy, this boy is poverty stricken. He's not able to feed his family. He lost his father. He's completely damaged. And he wanted to steal something. So immediately this thief looks at him and says, oh, you're getting involved in petty thievery. I suppose you're learning to become a thief. And then finally the small boy said, I can't satisfy my hunger. Can you please teach me how to steal? And then the thief says, I'm a master. I know how to look at locks and open locks through one gaze. So then the boy says, can you please teach me this art? He says, no, it's not time. So the boy persuades successfully to teach him. He says, I can be your apprentice. I can just learn things under you. Just teach me the skill because I want to feed my family. So, out of sympathy and empathy, and because of all his words and the pleading, he decided to teach. And then what happens? He begins accumulating wealth. With the help of his apprentice, it was very easy to carry on this act of robbery. He began looting, actually, plundering. Earlier, he used to only steal coconuts or maybe certain things. I'm not saying it's okay, but that was what he was involved in. But now he started robbing banks, different places, bigger paddy fields, bigger houses, mansions, bungalow, all these places, and nobody was able to catch him. So this is a story. So listen to this story with that mindset. And then finally, wealth accumulates. He's able to get a very big necklace for his wife. And there is also the story of a Dravidian king. One day, when he gets involved in robbery, he robs a house and he collects a coin. And there was a Dravidian king etched on the coin on one side. And that was with him forever till the end of the story. And there is a part to that. I don't want to spoil the whole story by narrating everything. So, that is one particular segment, a subplot to this particular main plot. And when the wealth accumulates, he gets perplexed. He's worried, he's not able to sleep. He says, I'm not able to store all the wealth, the gold coins, and everything I've gathered in our house. He tells his wife. But then his wife says, everybody is becoming jealous, okay? Everybody asks me where I got this necklace from. And then the thief says, I'll try to find cellar where I can store the treasure and the wealth so that nobody finds it out. So he began hunting for sellers and he began accumulating his wealth, the gold coins and whatever he got, whatever he stole from different people. He was able to store it in the exact form in the cellars. And then one day, he asked this boy, the boy, do you remember the boy from the previous part of the story? He asked the boy, what do you want to become in life? You said you want to study. Immediately the boy said, I want to become a policeman. And he says, policeman, and you're stealing now? And he says, yes, I wanted to become a policeman, but I was not able to do it because we were impoverished and I was not able to feed myself. I was not able to study properly. And then the thief looks at him. You want to become a policeman? And then he laughs and says, you're not going to do it. So they were in a sort of quandary. What is the meaning of quandary? Confused, convoluted thoughts, completely confused. Then the boy said, no, I'm going to become a policeman. This is only for the time being. I want to feed my family. It's not okay to steal, but still, this is a dream that the boy had. And then one day, when the thief comes back home, and when he checks the cellar, somebody had already opened the lock of the cellar. He was furious. He asked his wife, and his wife says, no, 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 I didn't do it. And then he checked the boy's room, the boy's belongings, nobody was there. And by the time he gets to know that, the boy already became a policeman. He was studying at the same time. He worked hard, he became a policeman. And now, when he becomes a policeman, he cannot steal. He stopped stealing. That is another part to the story. So he was furious. He thought that the scholar, I mean the professor, taught this boy to open locks by looking at it. He assumed. He assumed this. So he thought of going to the professor. Before that, I would like to tell you something. When he collects the first gold coins and the gold chains from a particular house, he visits a professor. He sneaks in, and the professor says, what are you doing here? You finished learning everything from me. Why did you creep in? And why did you come into my house? There's nothing here. And immediately the thief said, I want to give you Guru Dakshina. I was not able to do it earlier. So this is a kind of gift to you, because you taught me the skill of opening locks just by looking at it, but now I'm able to feed my family. I have a better living condition. And then the professor said, go away, I'm not into this anymore. I'm just experimenting with different sciences. So now I'm trying to specialize in aeronautical science, because that was more important and that was quite interesting to him. He said, whenever you begin learning something, you explore the space, and then finally, after giving the knowledge to somebody else, you should come back to your initial state. This is what the professor said. The thief blinked. He was like, so when you teach something to somebody else, you should forget? The professor said, no, you shouldn't forget. But after that, you will return to your original state. I have shared everything that I knew. I tried this science with you, that's all. And after that, you shouldn't be coming into my house. I don't have any connection with you. So immediately the thief was feeling down. He felt disappointed. He said, I just came to give you the Guru Dakshina. And he said, no, no, this is not anything about Guru Dakshina. You're not supposed to do this. You learned something, now you go. Don't come back to me. So that's it. So after the thief left, the professor thought to himself. He had a kind of monologue. Of course, the boy, I mean, the thief would have felt bad because the professor was old. But still, I shouldn't encourage him to come back and give me all the things that he stole. So he left with that. Then comes the episode of this boy, the small boy, the apprentice, walking out, just running away. So immediately the thief got angry because he got reminded of this episode where the professor said, don't come back to me. So that night, when he found out that his cellar had an intruder, that somebody had got into his space, his cellar, he was furious. He decided to visit the professor again. He went back to the house of the professor. He questioned him. What did you do? He got so angry and he said, why did you teach this skill to somebody else? The professor looked at him, laughed, and said, I'm not into this anymore. I am trying to become innocent again. So when the thief looked at him, the full room had books, children's books. And he was laughing. He said, look at the innocence of these books. The children are so innocent. It makes me laugh. He was laughing just like that in his armchair in a boisterous and jarring manner. Now that annoyed the thief. The thief said, I've come with a problem to you. Why did you teach somebody else the skill? That is to look at a lock and open it through one gaze. Immediately the professor said, who told you that you shouldn't be sharing your knowledge? If at all you acquire something, you're supposed to give it to somebody else, right? It's like a siddhi, he says. And then the thief becomes so angry. He says, no, you were not supposed to teach it to somebody else. You know, that boy stole everything. You know something? There was somebody who stole into my cellar and he was able to open the lock. I had preserved so many things. He began complaining. And then the professor looks at him and says, child, you should understand something. When you accumulate wealth, you are busy accumulating wealth. And now your worry is to preserve the wealth. Whatever you have got, you're greedy for it. You are experiencing avarice, that is greedy, not just for hunger, but just to satiate, to satisfy your greediness. You're accumulating wealth, you're not sharing it with anyone. Even if you use it for something else, if you buy something, if you buy food or something, it's good. But here, you have already met the basic needs of your family, and the remaining, the extra wealth is getting accumulated. Now, your main worry is to preserve and to safeguard the wealth. And immediately the thief says, "You made me a thief. I was a petty thief. I was happy with that profession. You gave me the skill that is to open the lock through just one gaze." And then the professor says, "Everybody's a thief in this universe. Because you acquire, you take ideas from the universe. Even if you don't directly copy it, you are taking so many things from each other. You are interdependent." So when it comes to learning, also we share, we collaborate, we don't copy exactly. Now, copying, plagiarism, all these things are different levels of crime. It's an offense. But here, coming to being a thief, the professor puts it in a very subtle way that you are a thief already in the universe. You're taking something else and giving it to somebody else in another form. Sharing of knowledge, acquiring knowledge. So that is how we all are created. You depend on the nature. Like that, he gives a lot of examples, beautiful examples. The thief was not convinced. He said, "Why did you teach this skill to the other person?" And then the professor says, "See, I experimented with Chora Shastra, that is science of thievery. I tried it on you. You were so anxious. I taught you this particular skill to open locks. Now, somebody else took it from you. It's not my problem because you want to just safeguard whatever you have accumulated. Now, try to distribute. Don't be so selfish. Don't be so greedy because learning and acquiring things, everything should be like these children. You should be innocent. You should get something and give it, split it and give." The thief did not understand anything, and immediately he had a very big argument. And then what happens? He says, "You don't need anything now. You have already met the needs of your family. You're doing something for yourself, nothing for the society. Now give it to somebody else." Uttering these words, the professor kind of collapses. He's in his armchair and it looks as if he's sleeping off. And then the thief tries to wake him up. He calls him, "Sir, sir, sir, wake up, Professor Guruji." But he doesn't wake up, he dies. He dies a peaceful death there. Immediately, the next chapter speaks about a streak of light, a bright light which falls on the thief. So he looks at the light, he was not able to figure out. Then he understands the light comes from the underground. So the professor really wanted to teach him a lesson. The light was coming from the underground, from a kind of cellar. The cellar was full of treasures. And then the thief says, "So this old man also has got a lot of treasure. Maybe he wanted to give this to me." Okay. And then he was so happy. He says, "Okay, the old man is gone. Now let me climb down and let me find out the significance and the wealth that he has amassed." And he goes down. Now, when he climbs down, the stairs are so complicated. The construction of the stair is so complicated. He forgets the way back. He climbs down, then there is a hollow space. It looks like a cave. You know, these old cellars, they used to be very complicated. So it's like you walk through one opening, and then you bend, you go down, and then there are stairs. It's kind of hollow, crooked, and he had to bend all the way down. It was like a long hole which was dug down into the interiors of the earth. And then he reaches the bottom. And he was so fascinated, he was so happy. He couldn't control his laughter and happiness. He was overjoyed because he saw treasures, gems, stones, coins, everything was shining. He forgot that he had to go back upstairs. I mean, he had to climb all the way up. He looked at it and he had a very big bag with him all the time. He took that big bag, he started filling the bag with all these jewels, coins. He got hold of the coins, he started filling. And then after that, the bag was so heavy, he began dragging it. And remember, to reach the cellar, he had a torch. It's not the torch with batteries, but it had a torch that was burning. So the torch was burning, and he was able to look at the coins. And along with that, the coins emitted light, because of the brightness, because of the exuberance. It was glistening and it was bright and glittering. And after that, he forgot the way. But then, when it was time for him to go back, he thought, "Yeah, I'll make my way up." He tried, but he was not able to do it. He tried and tried. He tried dragging the big bag. The more he tried to climb up, he understood that he was getting lost in the depths of the cellar. How disappointing. And he tried calling out, because after some time you'll begin to suffocate when you're in a cellar and there was no air. Maybe the professor wanted to teach him a lesson. And then after that, he began howling and shouting. Nobody was there to help him. And finally, what happens is that the torch was burning bright initially. After that, it began to emit sparks. And this man was also feeling very tired. It began emitting sparks because it was going to die soon. And the sparks attracted some dry leaves. It was there in the cellar and it caught fire. He was swallowed by the fire. The thief prostrated and he was swallowed by the fire. So that is the end of the thief. After learning so much, after gaining knowledge, there are a lot of people who think that they know everything. It's not just about knowing everything, but the greediness to gather everything in one day or in one go is actually consuming learners. If you don't share it with others, it's going to get accumulated. It'll become rotten, it'll start corroding. You may not be able to experience the depth, the breadth, and also the beauty of the knowledge that you have been gathering over the years. Towards the end of the book, you can see here there is a beautiful conversation between two authors, beautiful authors. One author is, of course, VJ James, and the other one is Benjamin. Benjamin has written many books, including The Goat Days. I did a video on that. And one interesting point is Benjamin asks him, "You are an engineer, you are a scientist. How did you begin writing?" And then he gives a beautiful answer saying that writing is a kind of vocation. It comes to you when you have so many things to share. At the same time, he says nothing should stop you. You should reach a point where you submit yourself to your thoughts. And then, when the thoughts make sense, or when you really want the world to hear it, you can just begin writing. Then there's another interesting question asked. He's the winner of the Sahitya Academy Award. And he says, is it necessary for an author to have so many awards to achieve these awards, to win the literary awards? Immediately, Vijay James says, yes, it's an achievement. He says, the literary awards do not make an author, it's something beyond that, because writing itself makes a person immortal. That is what we have been seeing. So many writers became famous and many thoughts just flared up only after they left this earth. Art stays with human beings. That is what he said. So, being an engineer, being a scientist, he was able to reiterate that. But he says it is important to let the world know that greediness, avarice, and also accumulating so much in this small, short period of time on the planet is not a good idea, because there are people who are greedy for knowledge, wealth, materialistic things, always thinking about only one thing, right? So, anything done beyond a particular level can always be dangerous. The last point that I would like to draw your attention to is he was also speaking about art and literature. You can see here, art and literature have a universal character. The basic passions and ordeals of life are the same for all human beings always. And then he gives a beautiful comparison between rocket making facility. He says rockets are poetry. Whenever he works with rockets, he says it's like poetry to me. So I just wanted to write poetry in a different form. I'm experiencing poetry through my profession. I wanted to share it with the world through my writing. So there is a kind of comparison given there. He says, I've said in several places that in a rocket making facility, rockets are poetry created using the language of engineering. So here I'm using language to create short stories and novels, like how all the writers do. And then there's something interesting that he shares. He shares about spirituality and religious ideology. He says whatever we are experiencing today in the digital era is more of religious fanaticism. It is extremism. When you are a spiritual person, you will never have the time to proclaim and claim and denounce and renounce so many things on the planet. You will always embrace humanity, at the same time deeds, action, which comes from your experience, and also different perspectives, perceptions. These are two different levels of understanding and comprehension. He says that when you become spiritually sound, you will not have time to distinguish between religion, religious beliefs. It's more about getting closer to the universe or a particular power, the kind of thing that you always believe in, the aura, the ambience. So he says that in the name of religion, people are spoiling the beauty of spiritualism. But always trying to exhibit your pride is dangerous. We have that among language learners also, where people try to claim that they have been doing something. But here in this book, he says greed, avarice, always accumulating everything just for your own benefit, apart from that, exhibiting what you really have in a negative way. That's what the thief and the family did, because he came from nothing. And when he reached a particular level, he just wanted to grab more. So I hope you get all the points here. I didn't want to give you the entire story, but books have a lot to give you. You may think, what is the point in sharing all these things from a book? Books share a lot of things. Instead of just watching conversational videos, instead of just listening to something that is always available on YouTube or on social media, experience the perspectives of other people. I wouldn't say you have to always read in English. If you're comfortable, you can always read in other languages also. It's another person's lived example, or maybe they're already living it, they have been doing it. And these guidelines can help you with skill development. So this channel is not just about language learning or just grammar, sentences, but skill development. I hope you get the point. Happy learning.